Hello and welcome to Serious Insights for Admins. I'm your host, Kristi Campbell, and I'm joined today by Danielle Laffey, Senior Director at Silverline. Hi, Danielle.
Good morning. Thanks for having me today.
And
so good to see your face.
A fellow MVP with her fancy sweatshirt on. I bought this at my first Dreamforce. This shirt, I paid money for this shirt, so before I knew better.
Before swag happened.
That's right. And Danielle is here to talk to us today about Financial Services Cloud. And I've been really excited about this because I live in Charlotte, which is a banking town. And so I feel like there's like banking dude bros everywhere. And I just don't always understand like what exactly all the financial aspects of things that are jobs are. And then to translate that into Salesforce is also something I'm interested in learning more about. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got into being an expert in Financial Services Cloud?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I started out my Salesforce journey actually coming right out of school in sadly 2004. So it's been a really long time, just officially aged myself. And I started in just regular Sales Cloud and Marketing Cloud at the time. Well, it was ExactTarget at the time. And I kind of just worked my way through admin and those kinds of things and ended up in consulting. And from there, I ended up with quite a few clients. I subcontracted for Salesforce Professional Services for a while. And some of the people who this consulting firm was working with were financial services, insurance specifically. So I ended up with a lot of those particular clients.
Okay.
It was before Financial Services Cloud actually came out. So we were just using regular Sales and Service Cloud in order to meet all of their goals. And then, Marketing Cloud sprinkled in and around on top of that. And they brought Financial Services Cloud out, oh goodness, it's probably like 6 or 7 years ago, I believe. And it was to solve a problem around some of the account relationships and the ability to have multiple relationships with policyholders in the insurance world or bank account holders, and then all the different transactions and things that they had from a custom perspective that all these people who were already using Salesforce were having to build. And so they kind of went into this like buy versus build mentality. But they ended up, Salesforce ended up pulling out a data structure to support the insurance industry, the banking industry, and the wealth asset management industry.
Okay.
So instead of having to create all this custom stuff, now you can kind of have it and configure it to what you need it to be. So I just kind of landed in it just by happenstance, to be honest, and decided that I was going to roll with it because I really loved helping some of the institutions that are, the financial institutions are significantly further behind in the industries and digital transformations than some of the other industries that I was working with before, like retail and those kinds of things. So
interesting. Do you think it's like, what do you think makes it harder for them to make change just because they're so large?
There's a few items, I think. One is, they've had these homegrown systems, most of them, that they've been using for a long time. And it's hard to take exactly what you've customized for 10, 15, 20 years, even, 50 years for some of them, and being able to transition that over into a cloud. There was a lot of apprehension, I believe, 10 years ago, even, around what the cloud was. And when you start putting financial data and PII data and those kinds of things into the cloud, it's a little different than, selling a t-shirt on a website.
Right. Yep. I'm happy then that they're worried about it because it's my data, right? So
yes. So I think there's a little apprehension there. And then these types of transformations, typically, again, they are larger institutions most of the time. And so the change management portion and being able to flip everything over takes a lot longer. They're very expensive. They've already pulled in all this time and energy into some of their processes from before, so they're a little nervous.
Right.
There's some of these in the insurance or banking, both, when they kind of go out, there's that old school mentality. I don't we're at that cusp where, like, my parents, as an example, they're not. My dad just got an iPhone this year. I
Okay.
mean, like, wow. And so some of the people who've been brokers and agents and people within the banking industry who are kind of helping with all of that, they don't want to put stuff into a computer. They want to, write things down, and so I think bringing kind of that baby boomer generation up to speed with some of it has also been
Okay.
a little bit of a challenge. So it's, getting adoption into something that's going to be so expensive. Um, I think we're finally there. It's like happening, guys. It's so
You
exciting.
gotta accept it.
Um, but yeah, I think those are kind of some of the main reasons that people were apprehensive of moving to any sort of digital platform, and taking things off of their local networks and
Right.
things.
And so I really enjoyed the trailhead. I just did like kind of the basics, and it was helpful just to understand. I mean, if you're not working in nonprofit, the householding model is already kind of like the idea of accounts as households is new.
Yeah.
But it was interesting to think about, because there are like secondary people on your insurance or on your bank account or your wealth management accounts, right? And like how that kind of impacts and influences. So what are some of the kind of unique, you mentioned a little bit about accounts, but other like objects or modules that help financial services specifically that they built into this cloud?
Yeah. So this particular cloud likes to take a lot of the best practices, right? So if you think about the banking side of things, they have an automated approach for you to be able to go in and automatically create a net new account, and then it ties into your back end financial information, and you have kind of all of that customer information there. And I can make that a joint account with Kristi if I wanted to, and being able to take that householding like a step further, in order to say that there's two people who don't actually live in the same household, but they have different addresses and, those kinds of things, and being able
Mm-hmm.
to tie those people together and then give them access to the appropriate amount of information.
Okay.
So we might have a joint account, but we might also have individual accounts, right? And so when you're servicing somebody, or you take that information and put it out onto one of the communities, um, making sure that you have the appropriate security in place, that only I can see my stuff, only you can see your stuff, we can see our stuff together, right? In the insurance, because that's kind of where I have focused my life for the last few years, it's all around that quote to policy process. And as much as everyone hates insurance, it is a life necessity.
Sure.
So you got to do it, right? Just like, I guess you didn't have to go to a bank. Like, there is that under the mattress thing that you could do. But like
You can't
insurance is
insure yourself. Yeah.
you can't yes. So it's required in a lot of states in order to have it, to drive a car or to own a home, or, get mortgagee information or whatever. Um, so having that quote to process and being able to have all of the appropriate objects that are built in there already with some flows, so it makes it go from an application and being able to take multiple people on an application, and then putting that into the account model, where you've
Mm-hmm.
got multiple people may or may not be in the same place. So householding is technically a thing, but I would even say that it takes it a step further from a relationship perspective.
Okay.
It has automatically built in there policy information and underwriting flows. So a lot of people are like, what's an underwriter, if you don't know insurance stuff? So if you buy an insurance piece, there are these amazing people who sit in the back office who take all of your information and assess your risk to say how much money this is actually going to cost you at the end based on all of your factors that you've given them. And they have underwriters, and there's a tier of them in order as it goes up, depending on how complex some of those things go. And so they've got that entire module and process put in place as well. Kind of same for wealth and asset management. So if you think of annuities, and it kind of crosses over a little bit with life insurance, and so it's still a little insurance, but also a lot of people use that to build their wealth out as well. They have that kind of information from a risk assessment perspective there, and they have all of that built out so that you can kind of configure it as opposed to having to recustomize everything and build it out all on your own.
So is it a lot of aggregating data from different sources? Like, if I apply, are you getting like my credit score stuff from somewhere and like health stuff or like other factors or even like accounts I have at other, like assets I have at other banks that you're trying to get me to have with you?
At times, yes.
Okay.
It depends on the information that the institution has subscribed to.
Okay.
But a lot of that information is out there. I don't know if you get them on a regular basis, but if you apply for credit, that is kind of publicly known, right?
Sure.
So you can go find that information. Institutions get that information and then they put it into the CRM, and then you might get calls saying, hey, do you want to have a new mortgage that's out there? Or you should open up a new bank account because you've got XYZ, or we can take over your loan for this XYZ thing. That information is all coming from kind of public information that's out there and available to you. You put that into Salesforce, add high velocity sales on top of it, and it makes it super quick and easy for somebody to be able to go through a call list in, a couple of hours, where before they would have had to take a long period of time in order to gather all that information. And, even the old school way of, sitting down at the nearest coffee shop and trying to get people to come in and gather information that way. So there's definitely, from a lead gathering perspective and trying to figure out where all that information comes in. There's another layer on top of the financial services cloud that has just come about in the last couple of years. Many people have maybe heard of Velocity before. It was acquired by Salesforce a couple of years ago, and it is 100% built on the Salesforce platform. And it's some different tool sets basically that have processes that go along with it.
Okay.
And they have a really cool thing called Omni Studio, which I think they've renamed DPA because I love you, Salesforce, but you rename everything. So it's now called Salesforce Industries. It sits on top of the FSC, and actually FSC is a managed package as well. So you buy Sales and Service Cloud, they put FSC managed package on top of that. And then if you want the SFI components of this, then that also goes on there as another managed package. And then they all work together in like one great big huge data model. And then this information has tools that has integration procedures or data raptors. And that information allows for you to easily call out in specific areas in a flow to different systems and even potentially transform that data so that it's relevant to whoever it is that's looking at the data at the time. So it could be that, maybe somebody maybe somebody's looking at getting a quote on their home, and they put all this information in there, and the quoting engine might not sit in Salesforce. So they put all this information in, and then there's an integration procedure that goes and calls an API to a backend repository and does all those calculations and then pulls back a number, and it gives it in a JSON perspective where it's easy to then format onto flex cards or things like that. We've been using this in, I'm trying to think, like the communications realm for a long time. So if you go look at utilities or you go look at, your Verizon card, and it says, hey, Danielle, you did this many minutes and you have this much information, and this is what your bill looks like. And all of that is actually done through Velocity. Pulling all that information in from different systems in order to present it in a way that is informative for whomever it is that's looking at it, whether that be an agent, whether that be a customer service rep who's trying to help work through that with the customer, or if you expose it onto a community, then the end users for banks and bank account holders or policy holders can go and look at that information there as well.
Interesting. So you're engaging with the output probably and not even realizing maybe that.
Correct. Every day you probably are in some way, shape, or form, which is kind of crazy.
Well, and it's interesting too to think about, for someone that's, for insurance or for asset management, whatever it might be, how the life stages kind of come into play. When you're getting married, XYZ things probably change that you want to look at, right? And then maybe that means, not that everyone does things in order, right? But like maybe that means you're gonna buy a house together, and then maybe then you start getting the baby ads, right? And
Yep.
how or if you do one thing, you register for the not or like equivalent wedding related concepts, that triggers other things, because there are public piece, when you get your marriage license or whatever it is, that then those are like indicators that certain things are going to change in your life that people might need to know.
Yeah, so they have in Financial Services Cloud things called life milestones or business milestones, depending on if you're looking at a person account or if you're looking at a business account and trying to grow the business aspect. And so that information, you can have that auto-populated depending on some of the things that you're subscribing to, especially if you go into the realm of Marketing Cloud and some of the DPA. And oh my gosh, they know everything about us, guys. Like I'm just saying.
But it's helpful.
It's supposed to
I
be
like
helpful.
to think of it from the positive, right? Like they know things about me so they can suggest me things I want and discount them, probably, so.
Absolutely. And so they also have the ability for an agent or whomever it is that's servicing those accounts and those policyholders or whomever it is, they have the ability to enter that information in. So one of the big things in the financial world is all about relationships, right? It's if you have a trusted advisor, whether that be on the wealth side, banking side, or insurance side, you are giving them money and they are helping you with, some sort of service. And the majority of that is relationship based. Most carriers, as an example, they care about the brokers. They don't care about the actual company where the broker works, because they know when the broker leaves, all of their people are most likely going to go with them. So they want to make sure that they are servicing those particular agents appropriately, or whomever the advisor is appropriately, to make sure that, if they move all their assets from one place to another, you build a relationship with somebody, you trust them, and no matter where it is that they go, that's kind of where it works. And so they have the ability to add information on, hey, Danielle had a baby in, 2020. So now in 2019 or 2020, they might end up, or I'm sorry, I meant 2000, because my kid's not going to go to college. My kid's not going to go to college at the age of 2. But let's say I had a baby in 2000, they would have been able to put that life information in there. And then they can actually go back and realize, like, hey, this person's turning 16 soon. Maybe we should talk about
kid insurance, car
insurance. You could talk about, some of the college funds and things like that are going through as people are starting to go into college. Then maybe it's loans and things like that for school. The life events really show what products that you might be interested in at that time. And it's a really wonderful way for marketing teams to get insights and be able to put relevant content and products in front of their advisors to say, hey, we've segmented these people out. Here's information that, they might be interested in. And even cooler, here's some models of other people who look like that. And this is part of the Einstein functionality within FSC, which is cool. So we'll actually go through and say, here's people who look like this particular person, and here's all the things they've sold. Maybe you should recommend that for this person too. And that's part of the Einstein recommendations of FSC. So super neat how it works out. And it's a really strong tool for agents to be able to create relationships with their people as they're kind of moving forward through their lifespan.
Well, and I know my first home insurance I did with my parents' broker, because like it was a guy I knew, it was nearby, it was so like how that familial, like starting my own household, right, and how that extends out is really interesting too. So you mentioned, in the beginning, that people were kind of building this stuff out, and then Salesforce now has created this cloud. Do you think that most, if an institution was starting to make this decision now, do you think people are tending more toward using Financial Services Cloud to start, or are they still building?
I think it's a mix of both. And I work with a lot of clients where that's kind of the first thing we do is an assessment. Like if you're a net new person, it's significantly easier to go on Salesforce versus and going straight to FSC. there's a lot of people who've been on Salesforce for a long time, and they're trying to decide, do I stay on regular Salesforce or do I upgrade to FSC, and like what are the cost factors there? And then obviously there's a few other competitors that are out there. I will say that the competitors that are out there are not as flexible with the way that they can configure. It's kind of like you buy it off the shelf. And we actually had this conversation the other day. Like, remember the days when you got a CD and you stuck it in your computer, and then like all of a sudden it was just there, like whatever application is that you purchased was there. Salesforce is not that, which is fantastic. There's a lot of configuration that once you look at your actual business processes, you can configure it a certain way. Because while a lot of banks and insurance and advisors, for the most part, work the same. They're similar, but they all have little nuances, right? That's why they're competitive with each other. And so, in order to keep that competitive edge, they need to have similar business processes, just because of the nature of their businesses, but also being able to tailor that exactly to what they want it to be. And if you go to some of those other people, you don't. It's just kind of, this is what you get. You get like a little CD. It's not a CD anymore, I don't think, but you know what I mean. Same concept.
It might be in the cloud, but it's still not very configurable. Okay.
Right. And if it is, it's a significant amount of money in order to do that. And so when you go through and work with the clients, you just kind of determine, hey, what is the, at this point in time, like how much customization do you currently have, whether that be in your current system or your Salesforce system, trying to decide if you're going to upgrade or not. And there's a lot of times where people have customized things so much that they can't take advantage of Salesforce anymore, right? Like you can only have so much customization before when they do an upgrade, something's going to potentially break. And it's like, oh, well, now I can't do this upgrade. And now, you're paying all of this money in order to reap the benefits of being able to get new innovative things. But if you aren't actually adhering to their data models, then it makes it a lot harder. Right. Not that there isn't the ability to customize some, there is. But we always try and steer our people to, you know what, they've done a ton of research. They've gone through and really got the best practices out there for all of the different flows, again, because all of them are somewhat similar. So they have all of that structure put in place. And then for you to be able to configure, customize on top of that, as opposed to writing code configure on top of that, has been fantastic.
So if I was a new admin that I'm like, yay, Salesforce is the way, and I want to kind of start learning, what do you think are some things that are, should I look at Financial Services Cloud specifically? Should I have a certain background to be successful in getting into, whether it's consulting or working at an end customer that's using Financial Services Cloud, or what, it's obviously not the vanilla, right? So what would you say, if people were trying to decide a path as a new intentional admin?
As a new intentional admin, I would definitely, whether it's Financial Services Cloud or any other cloud, the Salesforce ecosystem has just grown so much since I started, when it was Sales Cloud, and then they came out with this cool thing called Services Cloud, and that was, kind of it back in the day. And so I would say to almost anyone, it's really hard to be a generalist at this point, and feel like you're going to further your career and become like this really amazing admin, if you will. You really need to be able to focus on a specific business or industry or something. That's just, again, my opinion. But it gets to a point where you can't know everything about everything, even though sometimes I try.
So do you think like having some financial or banking background and then becoming a Salesforce person, that's helpful for kind of breaking into Financial Services Cloud?
It is definitely helpful. It's kind of crazy. If I go back and look at some of the clients that I've had over the years who've been introduced to Salesforce, we've implemented in, they've gotten trained, they've gotten really cool at it. And then I've actually seen them go into places like, I think one of them particularly is a TA at Salesforce now, because he was just drank the Kool-Aid and completely loved it. And and understanding what the particular background is. And I say this about pretty much any industry. But up until this point in your career, you have nuances in your career and your skill set that no one else has. And so making sure that you're taking that information and being able to apply it to whatever your new job is fantastic. So if you are somebody who is used to working in the banking as a bank manager or something, and you've decided, you know what, this is like not for me anymore, I don't want to do this. And you want to get into tech, like perfect way to be able to do something like that is because you know and understand all of what the data model looks like, where if you're a net new admin coming in, you might not necessarily know that.
Yeah, if you're me, you're like, sure, what do you want to see?
So yeah, I definitely would say that if people are in industry today and interested in kind of getting out of their comfort zone and trying to make a big career move into something like Salesforce admin, that going down a financial services cloud route would be fantastic if they were in one of these particular industries for sure.
Okay. And good opportunities with it. And it seems like it's going
there's
well for
amazing
you, so.
opportunities. We are looking for, I specifically, and we're looking for industry people all the time who actually know and understand the industry, who can talk to other industry folks about the specific processes and things.
And helping build that confidence.
Yeah.
And being the bridge between the Salesforce side and that side. Makes sense to me. I definitely recommend the Trailhead FSC Basics and looking at FSC for users. It's also funny because in the references, they link to all the other ones. So like it's a really easy rabbit hole to go down.
It's
like
a very long, beautiful rabbit hole.
7 badges later. But it was really interesting to think about the, looking at the whole financial picture. And like I said, like your parents' household to your household and how, I don't know. I'm a nerd too, but it was interesting. So I recommend people check that out. So thank you so much for helping us get a little bit more insight into Financial Services Cloud. I know you're a busy lady, but when you take an ad minute for yourself, can you share something that you've read or seen recently that you think our listeners should check out?
So if you're interested in the industries in general, I guess my ad minute or time for myself, outside of my paid job, is I like to do the Trailblazer community. I really love mentoring and helping people know and understand. And so I would suggest, I have a blog that I write information on. And if you are interested in checking it out, you can go to silverline.com or silverlinecrm.com. We've got blog information there about the Trailblazer community and getting to know them, understanding how you would be able to potentially network with other people if you're interested in getting into the insurance specific field. They have another one for banking and financial services, just kind of overall. So definitely check those out as well. But the Trailblazer community is kind of where I go in and get a lot of information. I love being able to connect with other people and helping them. So.
Awesome. And there'll be some new things coming on the blog there too from you?
I have a lot of new things coming out. I've actually, crazily enough, I shouldn't say free time because it's not a lot of free time, but I have a lot of information that's coming out on the new DPA tools. They've just had a lot of things with the way that they're structuring their licenses that have come out recently that's made it more generally available to the public. And so I've got some things coming out around the Omni Studio DPA and how that's available in FSC licenses now, and some use cases around how, taking a 2-3 week process and, making it digital and available in a couple of minutes. That's coming out soon. So just giving you some fun little insights onto how you might be able to apply that to your own business. Awesome.
My ad minute this week is a Medium article by someone whose name I'm probably going to mispronounce. I literally do this every week. Illa and Malverma. And it was about the Salesforce free DevOps tool, Capado Essentials. Yeah. And I thought it was really interesting. I mean, I like Capado in general. And I think DevOps is definitely an area that as an intentional admin, you having strength there would be really advantageous, especially at either a larger company that's already got some processes in place you're going to have to plug into, or a smaller place that doesn't have good DevOps practices, is building things in production, etc. So having a free option that's a replacement for change sets, and getting to know DevOps and working with, GitHub, Bitbucket, those kind of things, and just understanding the development lifecycle processes, I think would be a really great leg up in terms of not just straight trailhead knowledge, but some, experience with a product that could be a real differentiator. So
yeah, Copilo's fantastic. I've used it several times in a lot of different projects. It's really cool.
Yeah, and in even just learning the concepts, right? Because obviously there's different tools. GearSet's great too, et cetera. So, so that's my ad minute for today. And thank you for taking add few minutes to talk with me today about Financial Services Cloud. And we hope to see you soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to reach out. You can reach out to me on Twitter if you'd like, at Danielle Mackey.
Thank you.
Thanks all.